Human extinction, not whether or when, but how and why or why not, is the title of my presentation in the Ethics of Human Extinction reading group today. I agreed to speak here months ago, and when it came to preparing the presentation, I had no idea of what I had meant by the title. My mind was completely blank. So I did what we do these days and asked artificial intelligence. My question was, I'll be presenting in an online event for explorations into extinction, mostly human I guess. The audience members, judging by precedents, are primarily worried about extinction caused by the climate change and humankind's general stupidity. I share those concerns, but I am also myself an extinctionist and an anti-natalist. I have a vague idea of what I might say under the title Human Extinction, not whether or when, but how and why not. The main attractions would be that humans will go extinct at some point anyway, that the when doesn't upset me one way or the other, and that I think that people are a little dishonest about the reasons why they don't want human extinction now, citing reasons like the good of the species or the planet when it's more about their own little things, as exemplified by this gem. In his autobiography, Bertrand Russell relates the following story. I once devised a test question which I put to many people to discover whether they were pessimists. The question was, if you had the power to destroy the world, would you do so? I put the question to Bob Trevelyan in the presence of his wife and child, and he replied, "What? Destroy my library? Never!" Can you give me a 1,000-word synopsis with section titles on how to prepare a 20-minute presentation of this and not to be lynched by the mob, please? In a few seconds the bot, the darling that it is, responded. Here's a 1,000-word synopsis with section titles to help you prepare a 20-minute presentation on human extinction, not whether or when, but how and why not. In a way that engages your audience thoughtfully and respectfully, while still presenting your anti-natalist and extinctionist viewpoints. The bot then went on to produce what could be a list of contents for a PhD thesis, so if anyone needs one, just ask me. I limit myself to only a few points here. The first being that as an opening anecdote I should narrate the Bertrand Russell story about his test question and highlight how this anecdote humorously reveals personal attachments, in this case Trevelyan's library, as central to people's fears about extinction. Well, done, so box ticked. Then apparently I should introduce the philosophical idea that extinction is part of the natural order and quote notable philosophers and thinkers who have accepted extinction as an inevitable part of existence. I love historical stuff me, so I'll do that with pleasure. After quite a few twists and turns, the bot gets to what probably should be my point, self-interest versus altruistic claims. I should argue that resistance to extinction is often rooted in personal interests rather than purely altruistic reasons, and provide examples of how personal stakes play into fears about extinction. The machine gives this advice quite late and with warnings of being respectful and sensitive, so I think that I'll just say these things quickly and in passing so that no one has the time to be offended. And then it moves to the kill. I should present the core anti-natalist argument that it's wrong to bring new lives into a world of suffering and quote my own work to boot. Sounds pretty suicidal, but let's see how that one goes. I think I'll just hide behind some historical figures back and then advertise my own work, alleging that there is a connection somehow. I'll organize the presentation according to my main questions though. They are not whether, not when, but how, and why or why not. To the first question then, why not whether human extinction? And to answer the question, we have Matti Häyry, a French poet, writer, feminist, animal rights and vegetarianism activist, who in her 1892 public address The Pain of Living noted: "Obviously the world will come to an end sooner or later, and I for one have no problem with that. I do not even mind glimpsing into the mist of eternity and seeing the earth finally purged of its human microbes, left to the wild flora and fauna, awaiting the blessed day when it's stripped of this last instance of life." Almost a century later, the spirit, maybe in a slightly less poetic form, lived on in the views of Finnish philosopher Ludwig Wittgenstein heir in Cambridge, George Henrik von Wright. In his 1987 Science and Human Reason, he wrote, "I do not consider the perspective that humanity as a biological species is heading towards its destruction to be unrealistic. This perspective has often confused people in times of unrest and upheaval. For my part, I can't find it particularly upsetting." And apart from the chatbox advice, who needs philosophers to solve this question? We, the species Homo sapiens, are not eternal. Even this known universe is not eternal. Some people think that there is something in the timing, though. Which leads to my second question. Why not when human extinction? Sticking to the same panelists but changing the order this time, George Henrik von Wright continues from where he left in the first passage, which was, for my part, I can't find it particularly upsetting. Humans as a species will surely die out sometime. Whether it happens within a few 100,000 years or a couple of centuries is just a pinch of snuff in the cosmic perspective. And the spicier version comes from Matti Häyry, who turns on the attack mode against people who perpetuate the existence of the species. How dare those who have just closed graves start over again with cradles? Who does not recoil in horror at the cosmic circle where love and death shuttle back and forth between embryos and corpses? And who does not feel the urge to leap at the monster's throat, to plug its mouth and to sink it into nothingness? Or am I going too fast or too far with these Matti Häyry quotations? Not everyone thinks that life is a monster. Mine is not, most people say. It is in fact quite good. So could the extinction wait? At least not right now, while I'm still alive. Well, maybe it can, maybe it cannot. How we foresee human extinction to happen takes a role here. According to von Wright, it will happen naturally in any case. It seems to be accelerated by us currently, and von Wright recognizes people's concern, but adds that the timing makes no cosmic difference. Häyry agrees that humans will go extinct naturally in any case, but it takes an awful lot of time and people will suffer terribly and in vain. Since the demise of the species could be accelerated by abstinence to stop the pain, it should. So we get to the all-time favorite online discussion line whenever pessimism raises its ugly head. Why don't you kill yourself then? And for the umpteenth time, we try to explain that there is a difference between instinct and intellect, emotion and ethical decision-making. In the words of Clarence Darrow, the defense attorney in the Scopes monkey trial a century ago, "Emotionally, I shall no doubt act as others do to the last moment of my existence. With my last breath I shall probably try to draw another. But intellectually I am satisfied that life is a serious burden which no thinking, humane person would wantonly inflict on someone else." Which brings us to our question about why and why not human extinction. Matti Häyry is with Clarence Darrow. Hear, hear, no more procreation. Giving birth is sentencing to death. End to death. End the pain. Giving altruistic reasons for abstinence and eventual extinction. Von Wright at this point retreats and reveals his true colors. He was only what he called a provocative pessimist after all. His light talk about the demise of humankind was just philosophical nonchalance, the real message being that if people want to survive, they should do something and quickly. Von Wright's view is expressed in a life situation where his own children were safely middle-aged, so his family was not going extinct anytime soon. What we get from von Wright then is not an answer to the question why human extinction, somewhere between the lines why not human extinction perhaps. But this we hear more loudly in Bob Trevelyan and his response, as well as Russell's question to him with its obvious presuppositions. Do not bring about human extinction because I want to live my life, because I want my children to live their lives, and because I want us all to enjoy my exquisite unique library. Summarizing neatly the main motivation here, self-interest. Starkly contrasted by Matti Häyry's altruistic concern. Happiness does not exist for anyone. Misfortune is the common law, but the stupid love of life is so strong that the vast majority submit and resign themselves to suffering. Still, if man only accepted this burden for himself, he could be forgiven. But he cowardly perpetuates the cursed heritage by giving life to beings who do not ask to be born. More often than not, he commits this homicide unconsciously, but when he premeditates the crime, no punishment is severe enough to make him atone for it. Matti Häyry's deep moral indignation apart, we can, if these are the positions, have both. It is simple. No one threatens the lives or libraries of the Trevelians, but at the same time no one gives life to further human beings. For anyone who wants to avoid directly proposing our extinction, no one destroys the world, it just comes, as far as humans are concerned, to an end. Let me summarize my findings, not whether or even when, but how and why or why not human extinction. Not whether. Why do I say this? Well, because it will happen anyway, says science. Not when. Why do I say this and how my claim is unsatisfactory? I'm saying it because the timing is cosmically meaningless, says philosophy. The universe doesn't care. But there is a residue in that many people, individuals, do care. They don't want the world to end in their time. Why do I say that how matters then? Because there is a choice to be made here. Just sit back and wait for the human species to die out naturally after generations and generations of exposure to suffering, or deliberately make the species extinct by ending procreation and the ensuing misery. Why choose the latter? Well, according to negative ethics, especially negative utilitarianism, it is desirable to eliminate potential future suffering. Why not choose it? We have to have children and our children have to have children. With medicine and technology we can avoid and remove all human suffering. Or while we cannot avoid and remove it all, it doesn't matter because suffering ennobles us and gives our lives meaning. I have expressed my doubts concerning these arguments in Anti-natalism, Extinction and the End of Procreative Self-Corruption, published earlier this year with Amanda Sukenik. But now, enough of me and on to your questions and comments.